Good morning, Tommy. Tommy Deas, how you doing?
Good morning, Tommy.
Fine. How are you guys?
Great. Before we talk about the article you wrote, I think it's a great article. Any word on Tua, Tommy? What's the situation with him over there?
No, I'm sure we'll get an update from Nick Saban today when he has his noon press conference, but they're usually radio silent. About the only time I can remember Saban updating an injury situation on a weekend after the game, as in on a Sunday, is if they have surgery and they're out for the season. So the fact that that hasn't happened is probably good. And I haven't heard anything that would make me think he was out for the season, but I expect it might be a thing where he misses a day of practice or something like that, and then we'll see day to day.
All right, Tommy, everybody always says the old adage, win and they will come. You win. Hey, winning solves all. Well, there's nobody winning bigger than the University of Alabama football, but the fans are they don't travel as much. You got a great article here. Fewer fans traveling to watch Alabama football games. I think college football attendance may be down across the country. As you dug into this article, Tommy, what did you find out?
Yeah, well, we saw some information out from the University of Alabama through Freedom of Information request documents. Basically, how many tickets do they allocate to the visiting team that comes to Bryant-Denny for a game, and then how many tickets do they get when Alabama goes on the road, which are generally resold to season ticket holders, and how many of those are returned. And the trend is, and we stuck with just the SEC West and Tennessee, the teams Alabama plays every year, so there's no apples and oranges here. We didn't compare a Missouri game to a Florida game or something like that where there may be other factors. So it's just the same teams, and they're the every year teams. And Alabama, on average, is giving away 20% less tickets or allocating those to the other teams. Their interest is lower, and Alabama's receiving and distributing 20% less over just a 6-year period, but it's really 3 turns where there's a home and away with each of those teams.
As you look at it, obviously, I guess cost is there, but doesn't always say, everybody says like here in Tuscaloosa, oh, they've just priced out the fan. And we just laugh about it because the average fan, because you can go down there and get a ticket for any game you want, maybe except for maybe the Auburn game, and really buy it for under face value. So I don't believe that. I don't believe they've priced out the average fan. You just got to have a little savvy about you to go down there and get the tickets. Why are these people coming here and the Alabama fans traveling less, Tommy, with as successful as Alabama is right now?
It has to do with that television in your living room. It's HD. You don't have to mess with parking. You don't have to deal with that price, whatever that price is. And I'm with you. I don't think that's as big a factor either. It doesn't seem to track with the economy. Well, the economy's gotten stronger, but they're still getting less tickets, etc. It's what the way people experience sports now is more television oriented, and I think the worry is that that's going to, with cord cutters and people watching things on their phone, and the generation of students you have now when they're in their 30s and 40s probably won't be people who've gone to all the games. Who go for a little while because it's a social event if they go at all, and then duck out early. So I don't think they're going to replace the current generation of season ticket holders at the rate that the schools would like. Alabama's got that waiting list. Well, 20 years from now, will Alabama have a waiting list? We'll see.
Yep, Dad.
Well, Thomas is exactly right. I do think along with that, there is a certain percentage that think during this era, the game's not going to be real good anyway. The opponents that we play, they're no good. They can't play. They can, it's not going to be a nip and tuck game. I think that has some percentage to do with it.
That probably does to some degree, but this trend really carries across. Others have looked at this besides me with other schools, and it's not just a problem in Alabama because Alabama's winning. There are plenty of schools that aren't winning that are good. Tennessee would love to have Alabama's problem. Okay. Boy, their games are kind of easy to predict too. The last several years, they usually don't win them. Or you take a team that's good but not great, and it's the same thing. If you just look across the board, people are traveling less and attending games less. Alabama's actually doing well with actual, people buying tickets, but as you see for some games, they don't show up.
Yeah, which leads us to what does Alabama do about it? And I think Greg Byrne, it looks like to me, stay ahead of the curve. They've got the renovation coming up, and people say, why are they making the stadium smaller? But I think that's smart, isn't it, Tommy? It's supply and demand there. So when they do go in and renovate Bryant-Denny Stadium, when they renovate Coleman Coliseum for basketball, they're going to take, I think, 5,000 seats out of there, which I think is good. Dad likes it a little bit bigger, but then you create a little bit of a demand for the ticket. Is that the direction this thing's going, Tommy?
Yeah, I think so. And the key to Alabama's upgrade or refurbishment or whatever you want to call it of Bryant-Denny in particular is they're adding more luxury boxes. So if you're losing, we don't know exactly how many. Let's say they lost 3,000 seats. Let's say they lost 5,000 seats. If they add enough sky boxes that are bought by people who pay a lot more money than the people are paying for the tickets, Greg Byrne said the high-end amenities, which he's referring to sky boxes and things like that, will pay for most of the renovation. That makes it a better thing with a bigger video screen and a better attendance experience for the people with the regular ticket. So you can increase revenue while lessening the number of seats in a stadium, and that's the way the NFL's gone. There's also some things Alabama's gotten on the cutting edge of. The game changer to me, and I think it's across the industry, is Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, where to be fan friendly, they are offering free refills on your soda. You can't walk 20 yards or 20 feet in that place without running into a fountain thing where you can refill your soda, and your hot dogs are $2 and your bottle of water is $2 instead of, basically the old model is get as many people in the building as you can and take as much money from them as you can. And, if you get, and they would have calculated if they get X dollars per head, then they make this much money, so they find a way to get X dollars per head. And that's true at a baseball stadium, softball stadium, a rock concert, or anything else. And I think the model is changing to, we've got to be realistic, and, they're not hostages. You shouldn't charge them $6 for something that would cost $2 right outside the stadium. Don't treat them like hostages, and make it so that they want to go to the game rather than, oh, boy, if I go there, I'm going to get fleeced.
Is that why we're seeing Alabama as well? I think it's a good idea, maybe going away from the neutral site game and trying to bring the Texas Notre Dame a more attractive home schedule that will obviously draw more fans. People will show up for those particular games, the Citadels, Lafayette's. Those games are difficult to want to go to. Is that another thinking there with the administration? Absolutely, yeah, that's the direction it's going, and I think the neutral site games have been good for Alabama. A, they're good economically; they pay well. B, I think particularly to get the Nick Saban machine rolling the way he needed and wanted to get it rolling, there's recruiting advantages. If you go into Arlington, Texas, and then you've got a presence in Texas, you're spreading your gospel, so to speak, to kids you're recruiting in Texas. Same thing when you go to Orlando and Atlanta, where Alabama really recruited well in Georgia for years and years under Saban and with Kirby Smart as the lead recruiter than they had for a long time, maybe ever. So it used to be Alabama could do well in Mississippi but not in Georgia, and Auburn would do a little better in Georgia. But now Kirby's kind of clamping that down. But there were a lot of reasons they wanted to do those games. ESPN's giving Alabama and other schools a lot of money, and they're finding ways to try to entice those games because they get big ratings. But I think the home and home is better for everybody. Some of them are problematic. Can't play Notre Dame once because they're on NBC and nobody else is on NBC. So if you play them once, NBC's not going to allow them to do it unless they get the TV rights. So you kind of have to do home and home. Yeah, Dan.
Well, I don't know. This goes back. Tommy wasn't even born, or barely. The Alabama-Auburn game when I was there, of course, was in Birmingham until my last year or so. I can't remember when it was, but it was a fight to get the ticket. But you could sometimes you could find one outside in Birmingham. Has that diminished a little bit with it being home and home, or is it still is it? I'm not around it much anymore, so you can tell me is that a do or die ticket like it was in Birmingham?
I think it still is just judging from the data we got, Alabama now has gotten less tickets. I think that's an agreement with Auburn. That one's probably based on a little more on you'd like to have a couple more thousand tickets to sell to your fans for your home game. So it's gone down from about 9,500 tickets that Alabama would get in Auburn to about 7,500. But the trend there is that unlike pretty much all the rest of them, not that Alabama's had a big problem, they're in the smallest percentage of tickets returned that the season ticket holders didn't pick up. But Alabama and Auburn, 100% of their fan bases take the tickets that are allocated. Literally, in the last 6 years, there has not been one ticket returned from the visiting team. So I think that's still a big ticket. It doesn't. That one defies, and Alabama's been good, and Auburn's been good. But I really believe if both those teams rolled in there with 6 wins or 5 wins or 7 wins, that one would still sell out.
Okay.
What about when Nick leaves, Tommy? What's going to happen then?
We don't know who the coach is going to be. I do, but I can't tell you.
You do?
Kidding, of course. I wish I did. I'd go make some money off that somehow. But this isn't going to keep up forever. Bear Bryant was dominant, and then Bear Bryant was gone, and Alabama still had a lot of good teams, but it took till Stallings came along before they kind of got back up to where they were contending regularly and won a national championship after Bryant. And then Saban came along, and somebody else will come along, and there's no way, absolutely no way, that it's going to be like this forever. You're not going to dominate a sport like college football with just one team for 25 or 50 years. So there'll be ups and downs. It will test the theory of, the people who say, I didn't go to I had a ticket and I didn't go to the game because I didn't think it would be competitive. Well, some of those games will get a lot more competitive. Eventually Tennessee will win a game in this series, and you won't win every game against every team, and then that'll test that. But I think the interest in football is going to stay, but I do think it's getting softer, and the people that are trying to sell those tickets are going to continually have to find a way to cater to the audience to give them what they want. I think the next gen thing is you're going to have to, and it's just hard to stay ahead of it, is the amount of fiber optic cable you can fit in a stadium so that everybody gets that experience on their phone, that they've got the internet and everything for every second, because the younger generation is watching their phone rather than watching the game. They may be watching another game, they're taking selfies, they're doing all those things, and if you can't cater to that crowd, you're going to lose that crowd.
Yeah, no doubt. And also you had to factor in how spoiled is an Alabama fan, really, Tommy? I mean, when you factor that in, we're spoiled rotten, right? What Nick Saban's done here, the spoiled factor and not going, I think, is there as well, isn't it?
I think it is, but again, this is a wider trend. This is not just Alabama. If anything, Alabama's a little more immune to it, and that fewer of their tickets are getting returned, and they're selling out or close to selling out all the home games. I think it was Louisiana Lafayette was the only one. There might have been Arkansas State that tickets sold, not actually used, was a little below capacity, and even then you're talking less than 1,000 tickets. But we went from a model where Tennessee had the biggest advantage in the SEC because they had 100,000 seats or 102,000 seats, and ticket revenue was probably your biggest thing. And then television revenue became the biggest thing. And now the difference in a few thousand tickets is nothing compared to what you make for being on TV, which is why you're kicking off at 11 o'clock and why sometimes you're kicking off at 8 at night. And you're not getting to choose what time you want to get kicked off. LSU would rather play at night every time. And basically the answer to that is, sure, you just give back all the TV money. You kick off whenever time you want, but you need to be out of the SEC to do it. And nobody's going to turn that money back in.
Tommy, before we let you go, Halloween's coming up. James, Tommy was our next door neighbor for a number of years, and if you would go Tommy, did you ever go trick or treating at our house? And Dad would take your candy. He would look in there and get something he liked instead of give out candy. So, Tommy, did you ever go there and lose candy?
I was way too scared to go to your house. There's a true story. You know how when you're on a team or in a club, you would kind of sell like that kind of hard Halloween candy door to door to raise money for some trip you were doing.
Yeah.
Just like today, you do a car wash. Well, my brother Jay, my youngest brother, was doing that, I think, for baseball, and it might have been junior high. And he had another teammate over there, and they were going to go canvass the neighborhood and see how many. They'd sell like a bag of that for $2, and it's probably 50 cents worth of candy or something like that. And so the money would go to the team or whatever. And he said they walked up the driveway or walked up the walkway, and he saw Wimp through the window kind of hiding behind the door. And he said the other guy to get it and said, "Oh, they're the nicest people. This will be the easiest sale you got." And Wimp, the guy knocked, and he waited, and he waited, and he waited, and then Wimp threw the door open and stepped up and growled, "What do you want?" And the kid dropped the candy and he didn't stop till the end of the street. And they just sat there and laughed. But Wimp also bought, I think, every bag of candy he had that day.
Oh, yes, there you go. There's a good end.
So that was the candy you were probably getting on Halloween.
Yeah, good. I'm glad I bought it. I bought a bunch of stuff yesterday for those guys all those folks down in Panama City. I'll tell you that. Woo.
Yeah, well. Yeah, they need our help, and I'm sure you guys have vacation there too. When they reopen on the Florida coast, right now, I don't think unless you're working for a power company or able to help in some other way, you don't need to go down there until they get everything straightened out, just like we had after the tornado. But time next summer comes and some of that stuff reopens and stuff. I hope everybody who's vacationed there before will go because those people are going to need it.
Well, Tommy, great stuff. It was a great article.
Thanks, Tommy.
It is a new trend in college sports today, so you got to get creative to keep the people coming. We appreciate you being on with us.
Thank you, Tommy. Appreciate it.